Welcome back to the EchoBench podcast. I'm Margaret Foster, here with my co-host, James Thornton. Today we're diving into the spectacle that took over Washington, D.C., the Army's 250th anniversary parade, which, not so coincidentally, landed right on President Trump's birthday.
Yes, Margaret, and what a spectacle it was. We're talking about more than 6,000 soldiers, 50 helicopters, and those massive M1 Abrams tanks rolling down the National Mall. The Army expected up to 200,000 attendees, and the security was, well, let's just say robust. Metal plates on the streets, snowplows blocking traffic, the works.
And the price tag? Let's not forget that. Estimates put the cost somewhere between $25 million and $45 million. The Army's leadership defended it, saying it would boost recruitment, but I mean, that's a lot of taxpayer money for a parade, especially when, according to the AP NORC poll, about 6 in 10 Americans said it's not a good use of funds.
It's interesting, isn't it? The timing. The Army had been planning this for years, but the parade element was added just weeks ago to coincide with Trump's birthday. Some attendees even said they felt the president hijacked the event. There's a real sense that the line between honoring the military and political theater got a bit blurry.
Yeah, and that's not new in American history. I always think back to the centennial celebrations in 1876. There was a huge debate about spending on public festivities versus, actual public needs. Newspapers back then were full of editorials about waste and political grandstanding. It's almost like we're replaying the same arguments, just with more tanks and a lot more social media.
And a lot more merchandise, apparently. Vendors were out in force, selling everything from Army memorabilia to Trump dolls that, I kid you not, bang cymbals and spout slogans. It's a bit surreal, honestly.
It really is. And the whole thing had this festival vibe. Music, food stalls, fitness competitions. But underneath, there was this tension, especially with the protests brewing all over the country. It's like two Americas sharing the same stage, but not the same script.
Right. And that brings us to the No Kings protests. These weren't just in D.C., they were nationwide, in nearly 2,000 locations. The messaging was clear, a rejection of what protesters see as authoritarianism and a call to defend democracy. The name No Kings is pretty on the nose, isn't it?
Absolutely. And the protests were as varied as the people in them. You had marches, sit-ins, even some pretty creative symbolic acts. In Philadelphia, there was a giant puppet of Trump on a golden toilet. Subtle, right? And in another city, someone in a MAGA hat was actually hitting golf balls at marchers. I mean, it's almost absurdist.
It is, and yet, it's also very familiar. I remember a protest in London a few years back, different context but the same energy. People with handmade signs, a bit of street theatre, and of course the police trying to keep things from boiling over. Actually, the London No Kings rally had to tweak their messaging because, well, Britain literally has a king. So the signs read "No Tyrants" and "No Clowns" instead. It's a bit of a translation issue, I suppose.
That's hilarious, and it shows how these movements adapt to local context. Back in the U.S., the protests were mostly peaceful, but there was a heavy security presence. National Guard, Marines in L.A., police on bikes in Charlotte. Organizers kept telling people to avoid any provocation, even warning against jaywalking in Florida. It's like everyone was on edge, waiting for something to go wrong.
And yet, the mood in some places was almost celebratory. In Atlanta, for example, it was described as festive, with families and music. But then you had the more somber moments, like the cancellation of protests in Minnesota after those tragic shootings of lawmakers that really cast a shadow over the day. So let's talk about the public reaction. The AP NORC poll found that while about 4 in 10 Americans approved of the parade, a clear majority, around 6 in 10, thought it wasn't a good use of government money. That's a pretty strong signal, especially when you consider the cost could hit $45 million.
And it's not just about the money, right? There's this broader debate about what these displays mean. Is it about honoring the military, or is it about flexing political muscle? Some veterans were actually arrested outside the Capitol for protesting the presence of troops on the streets. That's a powerful image. Veterans who served in the army being detained for speaking out against a military parade.
And then you have groups like Code Pink, the anti-war activists. They showed up at the festival wearing their signature pink shirts and waving Palestinian flags. Their message was pretty direct. We're here to speak out against the war machine. But their numbers were small, and in places like Minnesota, recent violence really dampened turnout. Organizers there cancelled all protests after the shootings of 2 lawmakers and their spouses. Authorities said the suspect had no King's flyers in their car, which just heightened the tension.
It's a stark reminder of how quickly the mood can shift. One minute you have a festival, the next you're dealing with real fear and uncertainty. And the government's response, mobilizing National Guard, Marines, and ramping up security, well, that's controversial in itself. Some see it as necessary, others as an overreach, maybe even a provocation.
And public opinion is split, but the financial scrutiny is pretty consistent. I mean, people are asking, is this really the best use of our resources? It's a question that's not going away anytime soon, especially as we head into another election cycle.
Yeah, and I think that's where we'll leave it for today. The parade, the protests, the price tag, it's all part of a much bigger conversation about who we are as a country and what we value. We'll be watching how this unfolds in the weeks ahead.
Absolutely. Thanks for joining us on EchoBench. Margaret, always a pleasure.
Likewise, James, thanks to everyone for listening. We'll be back soon with more analysis and hopefully a little less rain and a lot more clarity. Take care, everyone.
Goodbye, all.